This is Greg Canty here, and welcome to the Win Happy podcast. Stay tuned for interesting chats with interesting people about winning their lives and being happy at the same time. This show has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chat with my friend Michael Cronin, one of the really good guys. Michael shares his story, and without giving this away in advance, it is all about the pressure of keeping secrets to yourself and our limited ability to soak up this pressure. We had our chat outside the back of the Kingsley Hotel, sipping on our coffees and watching the River Lee flow by, so please excuse the sounds of outdoor life. Let's hear from Michael. Michael Cronin.
Greg Canty.
A big welcome to the Win Happy podcast. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah. I'm good.
You are the coffee king. Coffee Cronin for anyone who's on Twitter.
Yeah.
A boy who knows a thing or two about coffee.
Yeah, more than 20 years in the business.
So, before we get into all of that, can I ask that question that you've heard me asking people on the podcast a million times? Mm-hmm. Who the hell are you and where did you come from?
Okay, I'm Michael Cronin, as you say. I'm born and bred in Ballincollig, and I still live in Ballincollig. Never moved out. I still call Ballincollig the village, because when I was growing up, it was a village. There was 4 or 5 shops, maybe 3 or 4 pubs. That was it. Everything on the opposite side of the shops. It's an army barracks, and I remember that. So first few years, maybe 8 or 10 years of my life, I lived in a council estate in Ballincollig. And then we moved to, my parents bought a house in a private housing estate.
Oh, so you were coming up in the world?
Yeah, well, but you kind of fall between 2 stools when you do that, because your friends from the council estate think you're, after abandoning them, and then your new friends think you always think you're the boy from the council estate. So you do kind of fall between 2 stools when that happens.
How did it feel for you, that move?
It was very strange. I didn't like it, because we had good friends where we were living. Now, to be honest, look, school was exactly the same, I guess. But it was a strange transition, yeah, it was strange. But I suppose most of my childhood is my father was an alcoholic, so...
Was it?
Yeah, so most of my childhood was just kind of, I suppose, trying to deal with that. I have a big family, but I suppose we all deal with things differently, and I found it very, very...
And when you say he was an
difficult.
alcoholic, what does that look like, from a living point of view? How did that manifest itself on a, Monday to Sunday during the week, all that kind of thing? What was that family household like?
For me, I was in a constant heightened state. So I was as bad when he wasn't there as I was when he was there, because when he wasn't there, I was expecting the worst. I was expecting him to come in drunk and start talking rubbish. No, he wasn't violent or anything like that, but it just wasn't a nice place to be. And I've said it before, I didn't hate my father, but I hated what drink did to him. Yes. I hated the person he became. And
when you looked at him when he was in that state, what were you thinking?
I was just there are times I just wished he'd just go away.
Yeah.
Just get out of the house. He would have gone for treatment on a few occasions, and they were probably the happiest times of my childhood because he wasn't in the house. But the minute he'd stepped through the door again, even after treatment, I just went into this heightened state because I kind of knew he was going to go back drinking again. No, invariably he did. There came a time, of course, when he was off the drink for a long time, and that was okay. But I was still always conscious of the fact, even when I'm talking to him, I'd stand up right next to him, see could I smell drink off his breath. Or when I was younger, I'd go to bed really early in the hope that I'd fall asleep before he'd come home.
You just avoid all that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. But then I'd hear the key in the door, and my heart would just start thumping again, just thumping. And I remember thinking, looking back on it, I used to pray to a God that never answered prayers, because I prayed every single night that everything would be okay, and every single night everything wasn't okay.
Would your mum talk about the situation?
See, we were young at the time. we were quite young, and I guess she felt her job was just to protect us. You know, it's an Irish mammy's job to protect her family, isn't it? So she tried to hide it from us. She tried to hide, but then, you know, she'd be in the kitchen having conversations with her friends, you know, and you'd walk into the kitchen and everything would go silent. And as a kid, that's worse, because then you start imagining the worst. So instead of being told facts, you're imagining things. And usually what you imagine is a lot worse than what's actually happening, obviously.
And your friends and stuff, would they have noticed that your dad was a bit peculiar? Or?
I would have tended not to bring them into the house.
Okay, so you deliberately managed that yourself in a funny way. I presume birthday parties and all that kind of stuff might have been a thing in your house, would they?
No. Okay. No, look, it was the 70s, 80s. I don't know that we had big birthday parties anyway, I guess.
So the situation was managed in a way?
Yeah.
Did he work, and did your mum work?
My mother worked in the house at home, and father always kind of worked. You know, I don't know, would you call him a functioning alcoholic, but I suppose he worked. Yeah, he always did something. You know, he had various different jobs.
Was he a tradesman, or what was he?
No, he didn't. I mean, he would have driven a truck for a while. He would have been a truck driver for a while. He actually had a newspaper in Ballincollig for a good few years, to be honest. He sold advertising. He was a very good salesman. He was probably the best salesman I ever met. He was
he was good with people, obviously. He had a good personality.
Incredibly so. Yeah. But then invariably, you know, the money just went. Either went on drink or went on other stuff. It just went.
So as well as the behavioural impact on the house, there was the financial one as well.
There was never money at home.
Yeah.
There was never.
Did you feel that? Did you?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that can have a long-lasting effect as somebody grows older. But there was never, you know, he sold cars. You know, my father could be driving a Mercedes.
Yeah.
And you know, we could be having just, you know, spuds and butter for dinner, because that's all that could be afforded. But once he had a Mercedes in the driveway, he was happy.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a complex man. Was there drink in his family, do you think?
Yeah.
Because I know in my own family, like my mother was a pioneer. One of the conditions that she gave my dad when they got married was he couldn't smoke and he couldn't drink.
Okay.
Her father, I'm not sure, I think the word alcoholic was never actually used, but there was a big fondness for drink. And when I look back, it's funny, I had a chat with my uncle about it. He was back there a few years back, and I think my granddad, he was that bit older than my grandmother when they got married. Suddenly you're in High Street, you've got, 7 children, whatever. You probably haven't grown up with lots of children. You do come home from a hard day's work or whatever, and the place is kids all over the place. The houses are so small. It's probably the easiest place in the world to retreat down to Collins down the street. Because apparently he wasn't a drinker all his life, and that's something that happened. So I'd say he just literally fell into a habit of going down there, and maybe that's the way they managed it at that time, you know. It was strange. Now, for the listeners, we're sitting outside the back of the Kingsley having a cup of coffee and a scone with lots of bees or wasps or whatever fluting around us. But just down the road, looking across the water, my poor gran ended up in a Mount Desert, that the nursing home.
Oh yeah, down the
She passed away at 99.
Yeah.
And her thing, and she always liked a drop before she went to sleep at night. I think half that was because the old houses were cold.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't bring drink into the nursing home because she thought people have a weakness, and you're only opening a door to that weakness if drink is available.
Right.
So even though that was one of her little treats or whatever, for the latter years of her life, she didn't want that drink being there. It's kind of a weird thing. Sorry, Michael, I took that conversation in the most bizarre places.
I think as Irish people, we all, well, as a nation, we've a strange relationship with drink. I think drink is a very acceptable, this is a general statement, a very acceptable addiction. So if you're the child of a a drug addict, there can be a lot of, and rightly so, a lot of empathy and a lot of, sympathy for you. Your child of an alcoholic is like, sure, he was great crack.
Well, there was a bit of prowess about
Kind of
drinking.
was, yeah. He's a good drink. It's still there. He's a good drinker.
He's a good drinker. Oh my God, right. Even we were chatting to our neighbours down in Crookhaven. Oh, this guy's coming down. He'd drink all of you under the table.
Yeah.
And that's like...
badge of honour.
A badge of honour, an achievement.
Yeah.
And there's
I wonder what his family thinks of that.
Yeah. There's obviously a very thin line between the guy who's a great crack and drink anyone under the counter to not having any money and being a mess to your family. So our society wasn't geared up in a brilliant way to manage that, I guess. But that happened to be on your doorstep and inside your four walls all day, every day, growing up. So your own childhood and everything else, I guess. Michael, when you're sitting in school and the teacher, for whatever reason, has lost all of your attention, where do you go in your head?
You see, it's actually very strange, Greg, because I don't have, and I think it's a coping mechanism, I don't have many memories of my childhood. Which is, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't remember my first day in school. I don't remember my last day in school. I don't remember my communion or my confirmation. I've seen pictures.
Yeah.
And I can picture the pictures.
So it's proof.
Yeah. but I've no memory of it.
Yeah.
Which is, and I've just been told by psychiatrists that that can be a coping thing, that you just, because you're blanking out all the bad stuff, you end up blanking out all the good stuff as well, maybe. And I don't remember doing my inter-cert or junior cert. I don't remember doing my leaving cert. People talk about the worst time of their lives being their leaving cert.
God, it's such a big deal with everyone.
I have no memory of.
That's amazing.
I have no bad memory of my leaving cert. I cannot picture myself in the leaving cert hall doing my leaving cert.
God.
So I can only imagine where it would have taken me, the question you asked me, and it would be probably praying to this God that never answers prayers.
Yeah.
That my father would stop drinking, or just peace at home. Just peace.
And that other question that I asked people about conversations around the kitchen table, you definitely can't remember that, I'd say, do you?
They weren't there.
Yeah.
We never sat down really as a family for dinner.
Yeah.
Well, my father was never there anyway. He was either out drinking or he might have been gone to AA meetings, but he was never there really.
And again, where we're sitting on the river at the back of the Kingsley, we're looking across at what all Corkonians would have referred to as the red brick. And I suppose, not to put too fine a picture on it, we used to call that the mental institution, and the people up there were nuts or whatever. You had an early experience of that, didn't you?
Yeah. My father would have spent time there, and.
But do you remember that?
I have a memory of playing in the grass.
Yeah.
It's weird. I've kind of a good memory, which is kind of ironic, because there's a big hill, as you can see. Yeah, a big hill,
there's a big hill
in front of it, and just rolling down the grass and enjoying that. And I suppose thinking that's normal. When you're a kid, your normal is your normal, isn't it?
Yeah.
You assume everybody goes to visit their father in the mental hospital and roll down the grass on a Sunday morning.
So that was an outing. You trekked up there with the mother, and you played on the grass, and she went in and visited your dad. And
but maybe I was happy, Greg. I'm just thinking now. Maybe I was happy, you see, because he wasn't at home. So that's a happy time in my life, probably. There was peace at home. And
maybe there was a chance this place would make him better.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Well, definitely it probably would have been. Home was happy. I didn't go to bed worried.
Shitting a brick.
Exactly. Yeah. You're listening to my heart racing, waiting for that key to go into the door. So I guess it was a happy time, ironically enough. And
tell me, Michael, your career choices and college and all that kind of stuff. What was your path?
Yeah, so I did my leaving cert in '89. I didn't go to college. I did a domestic appliance course in FOSS, but I didn't last at that. But I got into sales pretty much straight away. I've kind of been sales, I suppose, since I'm about 19. I was telling my daughter yesterday, my first sales job was videotapes, VHS tapes. And I was given a little micro van, and I was up in, I think it was Mayo. And I didn't have any business cards because I had just started. But I was so young looking, I remember the woman in the video club actually had to ring my boss just to make sure I hadn't stolen the car and stolen all the stock, that I was actually working for the company. That was a good job. I really enjoyed that. I've always been in sales. It's something I love. I kind of love the psychology of it, as well as, you know, meeting people and understanding people and helping people. I think when you're in sales, what you're doing is you're selling a solution. You know, you have a solution for somebody. I'm in the coffee business for the last 20 years, and it's incredible. I love it. It's probably been my savior.
And for a lot of people, Michael, you know, having the job of a salesperson would be their worst nightmare of a job. Having every day suggesting your products or your services to whoever and getting rejections or yeses along the way. I can imagine it's stressful. You know, we're talking here now, 2023. You said how many years are you selling?
Well, since I'm 19, I'm in sales, I guess. So I'm 52 this year. So do the maths, 35 years maybe.
Yeah, so we've been through lots of ups and downs and recessions and everything and all the cycles that go with that. And obviously as a salesperson, you're given your routes and your targets and all that kind of thing. That sounds to me like a pressurized environment. How do you manage that? And is it a pressurized environment?
I suppose it is. I find I put myself under more pressure than anybody does.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, of course it is, but it's managed pressure. That's pressure you've control over. And I think when there's two types of pressure, I guess. There's pressure you can control, there's pressure you can't control, and you need to separate those. I learned the hard way. I guess I break it down like everything. I'll break it down to, you know, say a month, a week, a day, the morning, you know, first call, you know, so, and I make my goals really small. Like, you know, you rarely on your first call make a sale, so like I have a goal when I go and meet somebody for the first time. I have a goal then, and if I reach that goal, I'm happy.
I'm going to do a little trick now with these bees that I learned in Italy.
I love it.
And every single morning you come out,
jam and put it somewhere else.
and we put the jam up here.
Good man.
And off you go, lads.
Isn't that mad?
You just see what they do with that. They'll cup on straight away. They're not cupping on so far. They will. So that's something that's in your control, and you manage that situation.
Yeah. Well, it's completely in my control. I worked in retail for a few years in the 90s. I worked in a shoe shop in Merchants Quay, and I went in there with zero experience in retail. I ended up managing the shop, and then they opened a second shop in Oliver Plunkett Street, and I ended up managing both shops. And retail's tougher because you're relying on people to come into you, whereas if you're out on the road, you have full control. You know, if you don't do the calls, you don't do the calls, and that's your fault. Yeah. You know, so it's completely up to yourself, and it becomes a numbers game. You know, the more doors you knock on, no, metaphorically, when I say knock on, I also mean email and even the likes of Twitter and stuff, I make contact. But more people you talk to, the more sales you'll make. That's basic. It goes back to basics.
Yeah. And as you say, you're in control of it.
Yeah.
Because I did have record stores, I told you that. Yeah. And you're hoping on a Monday when you open the doors that enough people, for whatever reason, decide to get up that day, come to that shopping centre, wander in your door, happen to like what they see, and take out their cash or their credit card, but wherever that takes them. So that is a bit kind of random. The randomness of that used to blow my mind. Yeah. I'm thinking, how is it that the sales numbers on a Monday are nearly always the same? And on a Tuesday, they're nearly always the same. And on a Saturday, they're nearly always the same. Now, if the sun is splitting the stones and everyone heads to the beach, we're going to have a quiet week. But the way Mondays always ended up being, so the same, this random set of people, for whatever reason, go through the door of that shopping centre and come in your door and purchase something, and it nearly always averages out. It's bizarre.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed after a while is the days we got a big delivery, people came into the shop. And it was, you know, it could be annoying because you're trying to get your delivery sorted. So then I decided when the days were quiet, let's pretend we've got a delivery. And you take all the stock out from the stock room and put it on the floor. And it just creates a buzz. It creates an atmosphere. It creates maybe a little bit of...
An activity?
Activity, for sure. Yeah. I mean, for sure. That's why restaurants will put you sitting in the window, because it makes you look busy, doesn't it? Or makes them look busy. But it also creates this, you're not standing there looking at customers and they're not afraid to come in. You're busy, so they feel more comfortable browsing around. It always seems to work, you know. It's reverse psychology.
Those shops where you look in the window, in particular now, you know, when you're out and about, small little craft shops, there's one person behind the counter doing their thing. You nearly feel like if you go in the door, I'm going to have to buy something.
Yeah.
that kind of psychology of it, and I'm a sucker. You think, okay, let's buy something in here at least.
Yeah.
If you are going to make that decision to come in, which is a pressure, isn't it, as a consumer?
It is a pressure, but you see, that probably stops people from going in.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And you don't know what will happen when you go in. They might say, well, we've other stuff online. Why don't you check that out at stage as well? And they might have completely different products. They might have another shop somewhere else. Say, yeah, you just don't know.
So if they could do something to
just
relieve
to get
that
you
pressure
in,
off you. Yeah, okay.
I've often seen it. Please come in and browse. Not no pressure, but I've often seen you're free to come in and browse.
If we go back to selling 30 years ago, and you're out on the road, and I know when I was working in the drinks industry, we had 9 reps and we had sales managers and all that kind of thing. They didn't have mobile phones.
No.
So once you hopped in your car and went off for your 6 or 7 hours or whatever on your route, was there a lot of peace in that?
Yeah. I like music, and I just like listening to music. Yeah, there was, and I was on my own, and I liked that. I'm relatively okay. Well, when I'm okay, relatively okay in my own head. It can be a dangerous place to be as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's if things aren't going.
The best place or the worst place, can't it?
Yeah. Well, it can be your best friend or your worst friend. That's for sure. But there was a lot of peace in it, and without sounding like two old men reminiscing, there was no motorways. It took you 4 hours to get to Galway. You didn't drive up and down to Galway in one day. I could be gone for 3 days.
You're in B&Bs and whatever else.
Yeah, and it was B&Bs. It wasn't.
Having a bite to eat yourself at night or whatever.
Yeah.
All of that kind of thing. Yeah, but no, of course it is different, and you're accessible all of the time. So the coffee business, Michael. How did you end up tripping into that?
And I literally did. I was working for a labelling company, and I made a call to a guy here in Cork, a coffee distributor, and he. I heard subsequently he was looking for a rep, and I applied for the job and had an interview, and literally started the following week, and from then just fell into it. I knew absolutely nothing about coffee, absolutely nothing, and it's.
And I'd say at that stage, the country didn't know a whole pile about coffee either, did they?
No, cheapers no. I mean, it literally was, filter coffee was probably the biggest seller. Espresso coffee or coffee beans it was just kicking off. It was just starting to take control. Like, I was so naive when I started that I called into an O'Brien's sandwich shop, not knowing it was even part of a chain. I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. But it's incredible, and it's still growing. I don't have regrets, and I have no control over this. The only regret I have is that I'm not younger. I'd love to be getting into the coffee business. Oh, I would love it, Craig. I would love it. It's such an exciting business to be in. The company I'm working for are incredible as well. They're a German-owned company, a company called Darboven. And because they're German, they're very customer-focused.
When you say to me, if I was younger, what do you mean by that?
I'd like to have more time. Now, I never want to retire, my wife kills me, because my job isn't physical. I like my mind to be busy as well. Now, I have no problem taking time off. I love my job. It's a brilliant job. Even though I'm only 52 and I'd like to think I've more than 20 years left in me in this job, I'd love to have 50 years left in this job. I love it that much. Okay,
but if I put it to you that Michael Cronin at 52, well, your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, the skill that you have with people, even if you were that 20-year-old starting, you'd be 20 years minimum building up that bank of experience and wisdom and everything else. So I'd be inclined to say to you at 52, Mike, this is a new day. This is day zero. And by the way, all that learning is banked already, and go for it. If I said that to you, what would you say to me?
No, and I do think like that. I really do, because age doesn't bother me. It never did, to be honest. I do, like, when I say that, it's just the fact that I just love the job so much. I want to do it forever, and I hope I will. I really hope I will.
Yeah, but there is that kind of clock and that timeline that we're all kind of semi-conscious of, isn't it? That places you at a particular point on that timeline. I've got a few friends now, and they're a bit older, and I can see the very detrimental effect of the actual number and the timeline on them. And it's killing them.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to give, and wisdom and experience and everything. but just the psychological baggage of that number and how we all relate to the number and we perceive the number, and of course we do, is killing them. And it seems like a colossal waste.
I think you're right. I think some people spend their time waiting to retire, so they're not enjoying
punching out time in it, a job I hate and all that kind of business.
And then you have people dreading retirement because they have to retire at a certain age, so they're also not enjoying their time. You know, so...
And where does that leave the rest of us?
Delusional, just going along nicely. No, but I think that's it. I mean, that's why, like, I can't imagine, Greg, working 40 hours a week for whatever, 40 years, 45 years, and then wake up on a Monday morning and I've nothing to do, nothing to go. I wouldn't care how much money I had in the bank, and I won't have a lot of money in the bank when that happens, I'm sure. But to me, it would be more important to have a reason to get up. You know, even if it's working part-time. Now, I say that, and I'm really conscious. I don't work on a building site. You know, I don't work on the roads. I don't have a very physical job, or I'm not an electrician, or, you know, where it's really physical and it's hard on the body. You know, my work doesn't involve that. My work is more, I suppose, mental. But I just couldn't imagine doing nothing. I feel I'd have a lot to give, and I feel it's a waste not to work. I can understand the idea of retirement when it came in, you know, because everybody worked really, really physical, hard jobs, and everybody deserved
production line stuff and everything.
Whereas I don't, and lots of people don't anymore. So why should you stop working? I just don't get it. You know, I'd work in, I'd do anything 2 or 3 days a week. I love the idea of guys going into the likes of B&Q and Woody's and McDonald's and going in there and giving their experience to the younger people coming through, which is brilliant.
The young bucks, they need that, absolutely. They really need it, you know. I know in that coffee business where you were, what actually happened there? Because was that the same business that ended up in your business in the end? Is that how that happened?
So I knew where I was because it was the recession was going to close down as it was, the company as it was,
What was happening there? Was it just your customers were closing down, or was it volume, or what was happening?
It was, customers were closing, customers were buying less, and I knew the company just wasn't sustainable. I had to decide, and I knew other coffee companies weren't taking people on, you know, they were laying people off. So I decided to become an agent myself. So I found an agency in Dublin, and I borrowed money. And
what year was this?
It was, good question, 2002. Yeah, 2001 maybe. It was 2002, because I had this goal in my head that I wanted to own my own business by the time I was 40, and I was 40 when I started my own business. Sometimes be careful what you wish for. But I felt I had to do it. So I borrowed money. I had to buy a car, and I bought stock and went out, and you know, it was going okay. I was able to take a small wage, but then the wage started to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And
did you employ people?
No.
Okay,
no.
So it was just you.
It was just
you
me.
and your coffee on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. Just buying coffee from guys in Dublin. They'd ship it down. I'd pay for it and out and selling it. And then I'd a contact with coffee machines that I would sell, and then I'd make commission on those as well. I'd make a nice bit of commission on those. Things were just so quiet. Things were just so competitive, and you know, you'd give people credit, and you know, 30 turned into 60, turned into 90.
That's always a difficult thing, because you want the sale.
Yes.
And you're probably sympathetic to their situation. And if you cut them off, the sale is done. You're not going to sell. But if you give them a bit of a break, okay, they're paying you a little bit later, but at least you're still selling, and you might be trying to negotiate yourself on credit terms with whoever you're buying from. But you're caught in a cycle then, aren't you?
You are. You are. And really, I suppose, I mean, just for me, and it wasn't a mistake, it was all I could do, is I didn't have enough money, I didn't have enough capital starting off. So if I put it into context, let's just pick a nice round figure, if you need 100 customers to make a profit, even when you're at 90, you're not making a profit.
Yeah.
You know, when you're at 99, you're still not making a profit. So I didn't have enough time, I didn't have enough money to get to that figure where I was making profit. So from day one I was losing money. Do you know what I mean? So I couldn't sustain the loans. I couldn't pay diesel in my car, or enough diesel. I couldn't get my car serviced.
Was that just cash flow? Was that pure
it was
cash
just
flow?
pure cash flow.
So
middle of a recession. Now I went to my bank, and maybe that's where my sales skills came in. I managed to get overdrafts. I managed to get loans.
That's the norm when you're in business.
It is.
You have a current account, and that's to fund your working capital. You're obviously buying coffee, you're giving out credit terms, you're waiting to get paid. So if you have 100 customers, that's a lot of money tied up between stock and them paying you, the money that's just sitting out there, and that needs to be funded as long as you're making enough profit to cover it.
Which I wasn't.
Okay.
Which I wasn't, and that's then where things can get.
And what was going on there? Were margins just getting too tight, or what was the story?
Absolutely. You know, people weren't buying coffee. People were getting coffee from bigger outlets for much less. You know, for much less, and you know, kind of loyalty went out the window a little bit. Like, understandably so, because you know, they're saying, Michael, I can get coffee much cheaper. The quality is just as good from X, Y, and Z, and I have to look after my business.
Was that right?
To protect. Of course, yeah. So, and eventually it's just, it becomes robbing Peter to pay Paul, you know, and all of a sudden your mortgage isn't being paid, and your credit cards aren't being paid.
Okay, so there was a squeeze on there. Now, yourself in the middle, did you think this isn't sustainable and I need to pull the plug on it? Or were you so deep in, you just had to keep on going and do whatever you could to make it work?
I suppose there was a period of time where it just becomes all consuming.
Yeah.
You know, you go to bed thinking about it, you wake up thinking about it, you try not to, you have to pretend to everybody you're doing well, because you can't call into a prospective customer and tell them things are crap. You know, you have to project.
And they smell it.
Yeah, I get fear, I suppose.
Don't they?
Fear, I suppose. Desperation.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And you can, so you have to put on the brave
you
face.
have to. Yeah, you have to. And maybe that's part of being in sales as well. And then there became a moment where I remember we were going to a 40th birthday party, and we were driving from Ballincollig to Mallow, and a light came on in my car on the Mallow Road, so I turned around just to head back in towards Blarney, and just as I was hitting the village, there was a huge wallop.
Oh God.
Yeah, and the car just stopped, and I'm not a mechanic or any form of mechanic, but I just knew the engine was gone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard that sound, but it's just...
Not good.
The engine went in the car, my own engine nearly went in myself.
Yeah.
I just thought, no
last straw?
way. Absolutely, yeah. We still went to the party, we still had a good time, but I knew that was it. I had to pull the plug.
So that was going to be 4 or 5 grand that you didn't have?
Oh, look, I paid 7 grand for the car, 7 grand. I sold it for €1,000.
Yeah.
It wasn't, or 2,000, I can't even remember now. Some guys, a mechanic bought it off me. No, I borrowed a car for a while, but I knew that was it. I just knew this wasn't going to last.
Okay.
But then I applied for a job and got it, and I guess I don't have that entrepreneurial spirit. I much prefer to be a good team player. You know, I prefer to be Roy Keane than Alex Ferguson.
I've got a few questions for you. Did you have anyone to talk to at that time?
I had loads of people to talk to, but I never did.
Okay.
Never spoke to anybody.
Yeah, so your customers, you have to put on the brave face that everything is rosy. Mm-hmm. At home, you're probably more or less doing the same. Everything is rosy. I'm the provider. That's okay. Your accountant and stuff, would that have been?
Yeah, he would have known what was going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But like that now, they do their accounts and they get a fee now, so...
Yeah.
And they're busy with, 100 other clients and everything else. And the only other conversation, I presume, might have been a bank manager who was just going to start breaking you up. I know in business, you talk about the entrepreneurial thing, and it's something, when I look back, I had fast food restaurants with another guy. We ended up doing the record shops with the same guy, and there was a different partner in that business. Myself and Dee at Fusion together, there was always someone else. And the thing I always find is that invariably, even to this day, when you're down or troubled, the other person is up.
Yeah.
And they're capable of having a conversation, or vice versa. It's rare enough when the two of us are in a hole together, but it does happen the odd time, and they're horrible days. And you're hoping either of you pulls out of that hole and then reaches down and grabs the other person up. So I can imagine in your case, hopping in that car every day, dealing with customers every day and with that anchor of this horrible hole that's just getting a little bit deeper and managing that. And as you said, the engine went wallop. What happened next?
I went working with another guy who had an agency for coffee, but that lasted really short term. That just wasn't. It wasn't a runner. There was too many people involved to try and make money. That's obviously more people are involved, the less money is made by everybody. So that was just that fizzled out. And then I got a job with a good coffee company as well, and that went well for a good few years. I did very well. I was very successful within the company. And then an employment agency contacted me and said that the company I'm with now, Darboven, we're looking for somebody in Munster. And I met Graham, my boss, and we had a good chat, and I started with them 7 years ago, and that's going very well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, going very well, yeah. I love it. Now, ironically, I was with the company about 8 months when things in my own personal life just went wallop.
Okay, what happened?
I had a mental breakdown, and I had to spend time in psychiatric hospital.
So you've rowed your boat through those tricky waters of self-employment. That hole was getting deeper and deeper. Eventually that came to an end and you're up and running again. Was there still a little financial hole there? Is that what contributed to it, or what happened?
I guess the legacy of the recession, and being self-employed and that meant that there was financial issues there. Okay. There was problems with mortgage, there was problems with credit unions, and that didn't go away.
Were you eating your way into it, or what was
bit by bit? Yeah, doing what we could, because you'd everybody screaming at, looking for their bit, and you're trying to give everybody something.
Keep them off your back.
Yeah, but nobody was ever happy with what they got. So that got deeper and deeper, and I kept it all in, Greg. I spoke to nobody about it. I was only saying this to somebody yesterday. I think I don't know whether it's a man thing, whether it's an Irish thing, or whether it's a combination of both. But we don't talk about how we're feeling, and we certainly don't talk about money. Nobody knows what anybody earns, and people will say, "Well, why should they?" But not that I want to know what anybody earns, because it doesn't bother me. But why not? Do you know what I mean? Money is a taboo subject. And especially as a man, you can't tell people that you're not able to provide for your family.
And your wife?
Oh, no. Can't tell your wife that.
Did you nearly tell her at any point?
And I suppose I would have told my wife certain things, but I would have kept her in the dark about a lot of stuff. Greg, I would come home from work if I was in the locality, and if there was letters in the door from the bank, I would just rip them up and throw them in the bin.
Okay.
I sit upstairs looking at my bedroom window, waiting for the postman or postwoman, and if they passed my house, then I was happy for that day. So I blanked out everything then. So as far as I was concerned, I had nothing to worry about that day.
And in a way, Michael, that's like a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Let me survive for this 8 hours without someone up my backside.
Yeah. I knew then when I came home that night from work and I locked the door behind me, everything was safe.
Yeah.
I was safe now.
Then the cycle started again the following day.
Then the next morning you'd wake up, and for that split second, everything's nice. And then reality hits and you're wallop, and it's what's today going to bring, and it becomes never ending, Greg, and it's, and I'd hear all the things, talk to somebody, and my thing was, well, I can go and talk to my doctor, but he's not going to give me fucking €250,000 to pay off all my debt. So what's the point? Because that's the way your mind works, Greg,
I get the rationale of it.
Yeah, but I guess it's not the trouble we're in, it's not the problems we have, it's our inability to cope. That's what the issue is. It's a coping issue more than the actual issue itself. I'm no better off now financially than I was 7 years ago or 6 years ago. Nobody came and cleared off my debts. Nobody. Yeah. I still owe exactly the same amount of money, but I'm better able to cope with it. I'm probably better able to represent myself as well, maybe, to the institutions as well.
So was this just the pressure building up inside Michael? You're running and chasing, ducking and diving, hiding things from the people closest to it, and I'm sorry, but our capacity to do that just wears thin after a while, and it just, but like the engine in your car, it just goes.
And I nearly went wallop. Yeah, contemplated taking my own life one day.
Was there something that sent you over the edge, or?
Yeah, well, I would have thought a lot about it. I would have thought a lot about taking my own life. Like, suicide was very to the forefront of my mind a lot of the time, because I 100% believed everybody would be better off without me, that I was the cause of all of this, and if I was gone, I knew people would be sad. I said, look, Jesus, of course they're going to be sad, and that's stupid, but they'll be okay. They'll actually be okay. And I 100% believed that. Like, I knew, if I say it to you, Greg, I knew that was the case. Now, I know now I'm wrong, but at the time in my head, I knew that was the case. I knew 100% everybody would be fine. And that clearly I know that's wrong.
And that was a rational argument.
100%, absolutely. And I remember I was sitting in the car park of a shopping centre here in Cork, Mahon Point Shopping Centre, and we were after receiving another, they called it a statement of means form, statement of assessment, statement of means, I think, but where you literally have to account for every cent that comes in and goes out of the home, everything. And if there's any anomaly at all, then the bank want that. So they don't want you to have, any savings. They don't. Clearly, you don't go on holidays. You don't have nights out. You work to pay them back and pay your essential bills. That's their rationale.
And I've heard that conversation a million times, with NAMA and all that went with it, whereby they were basically saying, you need to prove to us that you're living on fresh air.
Yeah.
So we can have all the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there's no little bit of fat there for anything. And God love you if some bill does jump out of the ordinary that you need to, and you're not going to get any sympathy by knocking on that door, that's for sure.
No, because you'd be terrified, Greg, say my wife's car, if she got a puncture and had to buy a new tyre. Where's that €100 come from? So where do I buy a tyre?
Yeah.
So
shopping centre?
Yeah, so that day it was in the passenger seat of my car, and I saw it, and I was after filling out, I don't know how many of these, 20, 30, 40 maybe during the years. And I just that was the last straw. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I said, today's the day, let's just end it all. I can't go on. It's not fair on anybody. When? 7 years ago. It was November 16, October 16. Yeah, it was just after the long weekend, October 16. And now, luckily, and obviously, I didn't take my own life. I don't know why.
Did something change at that moment that you went, okay, this is a bad idea?
I didn't think of anybody. I don't. I remember sitting in a hospital and thinking to myself, you couldn't even fucking do that.
Oh, Jesus.
when I was in one of my lowest moments. But thankfully, I didn't. I rang my GP, and to be honest, that phone call changed.
What did you say?
Completely changed my life.
I'm in serious shit here?
Absolutely. I was speaking to the girl in reception, and I said, I need to see my GP immediately. And she said, no problem, Michael. She said, when you come in, you sit down and make sure you're next seen.
Was this a brand new conversation with that GP?
Absolutely.
Or he wasn't aware that you were...
It was actually a locum that was working at the time on that day. And when I went in and I explained my situation, she was incredible. She just said, Michael, if you don't mind me saying, she said, I'm not qualified to deal with this, which I thought was a brilliant thing of her to say and do. And she said, I need to make a phone call to CUH. And she did, and she came back and she said, look, present yourself. Have you someone to bring you into CUH and the acute mental health unit? And she gave me a letter, and she said, just, you present yourself. She said, you will be looked after. And so I rang my brother, and he brought me in. And I remember sitting in the reception area. Can I stop?
Okay.
gets to me sometimes.
That's all right, Michael. And that river keeps on flowing.
Yeah.
No matter what happens, no matter what we do, good, bad, or indifferent.
True. Isn't that true? But I remember sitting there and I remember saying to my brother, I said, nah, come on, I made a mistake. I actually feel fine. I'm grand now, you know. And he said, nah, Michael, come on.
Is he a younger or older brother?
Older.
Okay.
I've one older.
You close to him?
Yeah. I have 6 brothers. We're all very close. All very close.
Had your wife any idea what was going on at this stage? Did she?
I had shown her the letter. She was gobsmacked. She knew nothing. Nobody knew anything, Greg. 6 brothers, my mother, my wife, my kids, my work colleagues, my friends, nobody. And so I was seen by a psychiatrist on my own first, and then with my wife, and then it was suggested I'd book in and stay in for a while, and which I did, and that was, for me, a very positive experience. I know it's not everybody's experience. For me, it was. I think I decided if I'm going to be here, however long I'm going to be here, I'm going to listen to them.
All in?
Yeah, and I decided what's the worst that can happen. You know, if the worst that can happen is I come out the same, but at least give it a shot. So that place was amazing. You know, it's...
In a weird way, it sounds like you had a positive mindset about the process that you had admitted yourself into.
Yeah, I think, I often think, and I can't swim, I often think it was like jumping into a swimming pool and I hit the bottom of the pool and I decided I can stay in the bottom now or I can try and make it back up to the top. And I just decided, look, let's fucking try it. It's the worst.
Okay.
I decided it can't be any worse. At best, they're going to give me some tablets, you know, and then might make a difference.
Was there a little bit of relief?
Yes, huge.
In that now everyone knows.
Oh,
this big secret that I've been storing up.
And selfishly, I knew nobody could get to me.
Yeah.
I knew I was protected.
Yeah.
I didn't want to leave there. I didn't want to leave because being in there was like having, and I know it's maybe slightly selfish, but it was self-preservation as well. It was like having a big blanket around me.
Yeah, like let the whole world fuck off.
Oh, they can all fuck off now. They can. But then I was conscious of the fact there was still letters coming at home, and my wife had to deal with those, and that was unfair. But you talk about things being in your control. That was out of my control.
Yeah.
Could not control that because I was in hospital trying to get better. If I was in hospital with cancer, nobody would have been banging on my door saying, you need to pay your mortgage. So I just decided, I have to get better here. I have to. And they had all sorts of therapy in the mental health unit. There was music therapy, there was baking therapy, walking therapy, art therapy, mindfulness, meditation. These were all available to you. Now, it was your choice to go to them. And I went to some mindfulness sessions and I found them just incredible. Absolutely incredible. You know, meditation, mindfulness, it was like, you know, when your washing machine is on a spin in the last cycle and it's going 1,000 miles an hour at the start and then it slows down and slows down and slows down and slows down and slows down. Well, that's my first experience of meditation, was like that. So I noticed my mind wasn't racing. I noticed the stillness and the peace, albeit just for a few minutes. But I thought, if I can get that for a few minutes, imagine if I keep doing it, what I can get. And I find meditation, I'm not a happy clappy hippie meditation type person, but even just breathing exercises, I find those very good. But that all came from, actually the HSE even paid for me. So I'll jump forward a little bit, but we can go back again. So when I came out of hospital, I had aftercare in the local health centre, where I went once a week to see a therapy nurse, and she was outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And we spoke about mindfulness, and HSE were running a course, and they put me forward for that. I applied it and I got into it, and I did I think it was a 12-week course, and that was all paid for by the HSE as well, and that was incredible.
That period of time when you were in there, how long did that last for?
That was nearly 3 weeks.
Okay. Who else was in there? I was in that.
Sure, I know exactly what you mean. There was everybody, Greg. There was a teacher, there was a nurse, there was a student, there was a couple of guys there was one guy who used to love to take off all his clothes and run up and down the corridor.
It was too hot.
Yeah, in November.
Well, the heating is always on in that place, way too much.
There was everybody, and everybody was the same.
Okay.
You know, everybody, it doesn't matter who you are in there. It just doesn't matter. Everybody was the same. You've got a men's wing to the right, you've got a women's wing to the left, and then you've a breakfast room and 2 TV rooms in the middle. Everybody has a room to themselves. For the first few days I was on suicide watch, which meant my door was always opened by the nurse's station, and my belt was taken off me, my shoelaces were taken off me.
Was that necessary, do you think?
I don't know. Well, I slept a lot at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And no, they didn't. I mean, they gave me tablets. You know, they gave me sleeping tablets. But my body also, I think, shut down as well. It needed.
Yeah.
Like having a physical breakdown like that, it's hard to explain. But it's exhausting for the body as well as the mind. You know, and I think my body just said, you need to sleep. But I just needed to sleep. Yeah. Yeah, and I do remember getting up and saying I needed a shower. And they have wet rooms, and everybody has their own shower. You know, I'm not going to call it en suite because it's nothing like a hotel room. It's probably more like a prison room, but more comfortable. Nobody's door is locked or anything like that, and you don't. There isn't television in your room. There's a bed and there's a locker and a wardrobe, and a wet room. But I went in and I had my shower, and when I got out I noticed the whole room was flooded. And I just thought, they're going to kick me out of here. I'm after flooding. What if I'm after flooding the hospital? What if the whole place is flooded? And I remember just really, really panicking and drying the whole place up and getting dressed and running out and saying, I'm after making a big mistake. And they said to me, oh, that's all right. We always have a problem with that shower. Don't worry about that. It gets blocked. Then I was moved to a different room. And so they wake you every morning at 7:30, 7:45 for breakfast. You know, they, as much as they can, insist you get up, you have your breakfast. I prefer to eat on my own and try and get my own thoughts. You know, and even for lunch and evening meals, I mean, the food in there was outstanding, very healthy food, which was great. And they'd always, even when you're having your therapy, and actually the psychiatric nurses were just phenomenal. They were just phenomenal. But they'd always recommend that you have a healthy diet. Now clearly I was put on antidepressants and sleeping tablets because I wasn't sleeping, obviously. But they'd always recommend exercise, meditation, mindfulness, you know, any kind of alternative therapy. I think people have this misconception, or at least it wasn't my experience. I shouldn't talk about other people. My experience wasn't, here are your tablets and now off you go. They explained to me the tablets would probably be temporary, maybe not, you know, that was kind of up to myself, but I shouldn't rely on them, and I don't. I believe the other stuff I do is just as important, if not more important, than taking any medication. Because medication isn't just take those and you'll be fine. It doesn't work like that, in my opinion anyway. For me, my antidepressants bring me to a level where I can start doing stuff for myself. So they bring me to a level where I know I need to do stuff. And it's from then on, all the good stuff is done.
Okay.
I call them my happy pills, but they don't make me happy. You know what I mean?
Well, they bring you to a place where you can then start to be happy, I guess.
Yes.
In terms of visitors at that time, all the stuff outside those four walls, were they allowed in? Or
Visitors, well, I didn't want to see anybody for the first, obviously, few days anyway. Visitors were, but the way it works is visitors can't come into the main, say, reception area because of confidentiality, which kind of, I'm betwixt and between. I understand it, that some people mightn't want other people to know they're in psychiatric hospital, but then if we're to get rid of all this stigma about mental illness, why do we have to be confidential about it?
Is that stigma around mental illness? And if I go in to visit Michael and I say, Jesus almighty, there's Mary over there. I never realised she was in here. And so on and so on and so on.
But we don't do that with any other illness that I know of. Which is, but at the same time I can understand why, because it's the people themselves. Some people don't want other people to know. And I suppose we got to respect that.
And I understand that. And in a funny way, putting on my business hat, or to be honest with you, my career hat. If I'm an accountant by profession, so if I'm the financial controller in a place or the general manager, which I was, or you have your own business, and suddenly your colleagues or your clients or your peers, Jesus, did you hear about Greg? I would fear, and I don't know, I'm not sure how people would process all of that, but it might be a case of, well, we can't be giving him that opportunity, or he mightn't be able for that new project, or sure, we better just leave him alone now for a while, because maybe you need to create a safe space around that condition so people don't, or that illness, so that people don't start becoming judge and jury and adding another layer into that mix of confusion. But I presume in a way as well, Michael, the people around you who can affect you one way or the other, or tip you left or right, they probably do need to know what's going on, don't they?
But they do. And the first thing I did is I asked my wife to ring my boss and just let him know what was going on.
And there's no messing. It's not like Michael has got COVID. It wasn't COVID.
No, this is noise in a psychiatric hospital.
Okay, no messing.
No. Look, everybody is different, Greg. I consider myself lucky that I can talk about it, that's just the way my brain is formed. I'm okay to talk about it, and I think it's better to talk about it. And I think I've got so much help from people, and I know how low I was, and where I've come and where I am, that I know that if I'm comfortable talking about it, that maybe I should. If it's only to let one person know that might be in a really, really, really bad place, I managed and I'm doing okay. I'm not fucking perfect and I still have bad days, same as everybody else, but I can cope with them now and I can talk about them. I've no problem now saying I'm not having a good day, or people know around me if I'm not having a good day. And that's fine, because I now realise everything is temporary. Bad times are temporary, good times are temporary. Bad times you just ride them through, and good times you enjoy them while they're there, because they don't last forever.
I hope you can join me on part 2 of this podcast and hear all about Michael's road to recovery. Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.